John DeSando.
Classics, let's go to the movies and share some popcorn, soda pop with our friends. Turn off our cell phones and get away. Night or day, it's John DeSando on the radio. We'll watch the credits from up high.
Cinema Classics is produced and hosted by John DeSando. Listen to shows Thursday at 8:01 p.m. on WCBE 90.5 FM. And listen to shows and read reviews online at WCBE.org.
I'm John DeSando.
And I'm Mary Yerina.
And this is Cinema Classics. Mary, we did a review on Cinema Classics about 8 years ago. You see, even maybe more than that. But anyway, we did it a long time ago. Linda Boss was with me. But we did not have the podcast that we will have toward the end of ours. And I like your fresh eyes on this, on Lost in Translation. And it's a quirky romance.
Quirky to say the least. You can use many adjectives. Quirky, unconventional comes to mind.
What makes you say that?
Well, it's about a relationship between two people, but it's not consummated in the romantic sexual sense that we would think, and it's not even probably based in that. So that's what I think makes it unconventional. And then you have the stylistic filmmaking of Sofia Coppola.
Oh yeah, I think the photography is beautiful.
It is beautiful, and it's shot in Tokyo.
Yeah.
And I learned that they didn't have permits for anything. So it was considered a run-and-gun production over
Yes.
27 days in Tokyo. And they used the city almost as a character in and of itself. And the lighting director also used the available light. He didn't want to use artificial light except for in a few select scenes. So stylistically, it's a very moody film. And for those of you who haven't seen it, we probably should set it up.
Yeah, we should. Let me just say, as I give it a meta look, it's a December-May romance, not in any way that you would know.
That is true.
Bill Murray plays Bob.
Bob Harris,
Yeah.
an aging, seen better days actor.
Yeah. Probably he's still doing advertisements, which he is here for a whiskey. And then he meets her. She's a recent Yale graduate.
Her being Charlotte, played
you.
by Scarlett Johansson.
Scarlett Johansson, a 19-year-old Scarlett Johansson, and a lovely lady, but just promising so much in her acting. So it's he's in his early 50s. So it's a big gulf of 30 years between the two of them. And it's one of the things that I like about this is that, as you were describing it, it's not even close to being sexual, although some people see it as having. I mean, I guess we just bring that to it. We say, oh, well, they're certainly going to get together, and because in our culture, that's what happens.
Right.
When you get two people, kind of dislocated in a city where they don't know anybody, and they happen to meet each other, and they're both Americans, and so on. And so we just bring expectations to that, and they're not fulfilled. I mean, we could say that flat out.
But in some ways, I think they were fulfilled. I mean, Bob is arriving in Tokyo to do a commercial shoot for Suntory whiskey.
Never forget him. What is it? What is that phrase? And I am forgetting the phrase about Suntory.
About Suntory time.
Yeah, right.
Make it Suntory time.
Right. Make it. Oh, and what an instructive little piece, even for an ad like that. There are nuances of those few words. The director, who is Japanese, trying to direct for poor Bob, and Murray's actually doing very well in varying it just a little bit.
Yeah, and there's also the commercial shoot, and then there's the photo shoot. Both
Yes.
have two different directors, and Bob is accompanied by his interpreter, who's assigned to him for this week-long advertisement campaign for Suntory. And those parts really are classic to me, Bill Murray, because we know how much he loves to ad-lib. We know how funny he is, especially with some of his deadpan delivery, and seeing him as this actor trying to take direction. These directors are making these long speeches about what they want, and then his interpreter says, do it like James Bond. And he keeps going, is that all he said? Are you sure that's all he wants? And those parts are just classic Bill Murray. So you have him kind of experiencing this, being away from home, missing some things in his children's life. They're in culture shock, being in Japan, which is so different from our own culture. And also, the jet lag factor. And then you have Charlotte, played by, as we said, Scarlett Johansson, who's a Yale graduate, recently married, but her husband, who's a celebrity photographer,
Played by Giovanni Ribisi.
He's there to photograph a rock band on, I guess, I'm assuming a tour. And so she's left alone in the Tokyo, I think it's called the Tokyo Park Hyatt. And
Where Coppola actually stayed himself.
And
yeah.
it inspired her
Yes.
to start working on the screenplay for this. So, I mean, they're both jet lagged, alone, and he sees her in an elevator, and then they actually end up meeting in a bar, in the hotel bar, where they seem to spend a lot of time when they can't sleep, and it's a bar that seems to be open 24/7. But the way their relationship develops is quirky. They have kind of quirky conversations, but in each other they find an ally.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the most beautiful scenes, I think, that shows the depth of their relationship is he invites her over to watch a movie in his hotel room, and they're literally just lying around watching the movie, and then when the movie's over, they're lying next to each other in bed, separately, not touching, and they have a really in-depth discussion about marriage and life, and she's feeling stagnated in her young marriage, and he's feeling stagnated in his much more developed, mature marriage, and she asks him, does it get any better? And so it's interesting, they find each other at different ages, at similar points in life, in their marriages, and it's a lovely scene. It's one of my favorites in the film.
I think it's so realistic. They're having challenges that any married couple would have.
Exactly.
And he has a very strong wife who keeps sending him samples of is it the rug or whatever?
Yeah, I think they're redoing.
Right, and that's the big
study.
deal.
Yeah.
And he goes with it. But you can say, now here's a fading movie star who's in Tokyo, and he has to comply with whatever samples she sends him. It's just, and then Scarlett Johansson is in just a place where she is a very sophisticated grad of Yale, and yet she doesn't know what she's doing.
Yeah, and she doesn't know what she wants to do.
She doesn't.
She clearly, Charlotte's a very intelligent woman, but she's in this young marriage without a job, without a career, and so she's following her husband. And you can sense that lack of purpose, if you will, because she hasn't found a calling that's her own, is really weighing on her. And there are some lovely scenes of her just sitting, looking out over the city, not sure what to do, which is, I think, a metaphor for her life. And then there's scenes of her being a tourist and really doing some lovely
the one in the
things.
temple is very revealing.
Yes.
She's a blank on that after that experience. She just doesn't know how to deal with it.
Yeah, and we'd be remiss, they go on this journey together of, I think it's about 5 days in Tokyo, and there's some really funny scenes of them going to a karaoke box and singing and night on the town. He ends up carrying her back to her hotel room, which is very sweet and very thoughtful. But one of the most famous things about the film is at the end, they've had an awkward goodbye.
Oh, look at you. You can't wait to get to that.
Well, it's
because it is very famous.
It's very famous, but he then drives away, but he sees her as he's sitting in traffic, being taken to the airport, and he insists that the driver stop. He gets out of the car and chases her down. And he whispers something in her ear that, according to Coppola, was not scripted. And so whatever Bob says to Charlotte is not discernible to the ear, and it's between them, but they do end up kissing. Not a passionate, deep.
No, right, yeah, a
kiss,
very sweet ending.
but it's a very sweet kiss, and Charlotte has tears in her eyes as she listens to
Yeah,
what he
yeah.
says, and he hugs her close. There's since been numerous, I've used AI and other things to determine what he whispers to her, but I think it's better to let it remain.
Oh, it
a
is.
mystery.
They have specific AI audiology tests on this, and it is apparently that he said, I have to leave, but that won't come between us. And it's so much better not knowing it. But for those nerds who really want to know what they said.
Well, and who knows if that's actually true.
I know it.
But what I like about that scene and leaving it a mystery is, like so many things when you're a stranger in a foreign land, especially if you're at the stages in life that Bob and Charlotte are, and you're lonely, and overwhelmed
Sure.
by culture and jet lag. What happens in Tokyo stays in Tokyo.
Yeah.
And I like that what they say between them should stay between them.
Oh, yeah, and and I've had more than one experience when I've traveled, when I've met a young woman, for instance, and where nothing happened, but we did connect in that way that you find, a fellow countryman, and you can talk about things that you know, and you break up and you're gone, and
Right.
you know that that's all there's going to be.
Yeah.
And I just like the way she does that.
Yeah.
Now,
I think it's all of us can probably say
Yeah.
times where we've been traveling, especially in lands very foreign to our own, where
Yeah.
you find those connections, and they're tenuous, and they're short-lived, and it's wonderful to watch. To me, this is one of Bill Murray's best roles.
oh,
and he was nominated for an Academy
and I
Award
understand
for
he
this.
left the ceremony when he lost.
Did he really?
Yeah,
Oh, well,
yeah.
sorry.
Well,
sorry, Bill.
Right, but I can understand, because he'd never get a chance like this again. This is a role he will never get like this. So I think he deserved it. He was so good.
Well, interestingly, Sofia Coppola very famously did not know him, but wrote the role with him in mind
She
and pursued him through all. And
For
then being
years.
Sofia Coppola, I mean, talk about having a network of connections.
All right,
But it
Mary, we need to continue our conversation. I know it. So let's keep your thought. We encourage our audience to go to our podcast, which is since it's Cinema Classics, it's going to be double take. So got to go to WCBE.org. So Mary, what do you suggest? It's a difficult film in some ways.
In some ways, but I was so happy to have the opportunity to revisit this film 21 years later and realize again what a gem it is.
And she won for the best screenplay, the Oscar.
Best original
And he was
screenplay.
nominated.
Yeah.
I'm John DeSando.
Classics, let's go to the movies and share some popcorn, soda